Hey my friends, I'm Mark Allred, and today I want to talk to you about songwriting structures, verse structures, and how can we get from verse 1 to verse 3 in a much more efficient way that resonates with our audience. Far too often, I know that I have felt like I have this great chorus, a great riff idea, but I just can't write that second verse, and I just can't get to the end of the song, and I'm just pounding my head trying to figure it out, what to say next. The problem is that far too often we rely upon inspiration instead of an effective structure or process. And so I'm going to give you some quick little tips on how to structure your verses so that you have buckets to fill that take you from 1, 2, and 3. Now let's talk about the song verses in the structure of 3 just for convenience sake, right? Each verse speaks to the chorus in one way or another, but you need to take your listener on some kind of a progressive story. You can call it the hero's journey, the story arc, or what have you. You need to take them from A to C. So how do you do that? How can you plan what you're going to say before you say it in a constructive way? Now, putting boundaries is an effective way to spark your creativity. A lot of people are like, no, I don't want to be boxed in like that. I'm like, no, it's when we have reduced or limited resources that we find ourselves being the most creative. So give yourself some kind of boundaries on what to say for each verse and then be creative within those boundaries. For example, I like to structure my verses regardless of the subject in one of the following many ways. Verse 1 could be about you, verse 2 could be about me, and verse 3 could be about us. I often use that structure or a variation of that structure when I'm talking about relationships in some kind of a song, right? So me, you, us, you, me, us, me, you, us, whatever. I usually like to have the third verse be about us, kind of like that's where we went to. Another way to talk about it is when you're talking about kind of an event or something. It could be morning, noon, night, or past, present, future. Verse 1 is talking about how things used to be. Verse 2 talks about how things are. Verse 3 talks about how things are going to be, or how I hope to be, how I hope they are, or how I hope they aren't, right? Past, present, future. And then whatever your chorus is about, you fill those buckets. Even sometimes you can break down specific moments into digestible time. For example, you can talk about the morning in 3 parts. I woke up and this happened. I began to get ready for the day and this happened. I kept thinking about you. And verse 3 talks about I walked out the house and this is what was on my mind. Right? Digest your stories into 3 consumable parts that progressively take the listener somewhere. A really easy and recent example that I was looking at the other day is Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. Verse 1 talks about meeting someone. The club isn't the best place to find a lover, so the bar is where I go. So he met someone. And then verse 2 talks about, hey, it's our first date. You and me thrifty. Let's go kiss in the back seat of the taxi. You know, but each verse talks about, hey, I'm just thinking about the shape of you. I'm falling in love with you. But he took the listener on a progressive journey. So that's one way to structure your verses so you don't get to that verse 2 and get stuck. Put these little kind of boundaries around the verses and then just fill them. I find that to be so much easier and so much more effective that what I'm going to say actually makes sense collectively in the entire song when I put those boundaries. I'll put in the notes a couple of those examples, but think about them progressively in that fashion and you will write better songs quicker and more effectively that will make more sense and resonate with your audience. I'm Mark Allred. Thanks for hanging out. Until next time.